answer to come from Quinn, Thompson, Lou, and Blasio in that order. And again, 90 seconds, so please pay attention to what the question is. It says, despite overwhelming scientific evidence that youth are developmentally less mature than adults and are not capable of applying logic and reason to make rational decisions and therefore cannot be held to the same standards of responsibility as adults, New York City continues to arrest and try youth as young as 13, the same as adults, with no recognition that children are entitled to special protection and treatment. They are being detained in adult jails, convicted in adult courts, and exposed to other adults in very violent and dangerous conditions, in spite of the fact that research strongly suggests that this practice is damaging and counterproductive to youth. As this is a hotly debated issue in New York City, the question here is simple. As the next mayor of New York City, what will be your position on this issue? And what is the first thing you will do to bring resolution to this issue? Speaking Quinn.
Thank you. It is a disgrace that in New York State, we are one of, I believe, the last 2 states in the country that still treats 16-year-olds as adults in criminal court proceedings. One of the last 2 states in the country. It is a disgrace. And it is, on top of that, completely counterproductive. All the evidence shows that if you try a 16-year-old as an adult and they end up getting incarcerated, more often than not, that 16-year-old is not going to end up with the quality of representation they want, so the high percentage of them may not even have been guilty of what they're charged with, but they don't come out of that system rehabilitated at all. It is counterproductive, period. And I'm so proud that we in the council have been working closely with our chief judge, Judge Lippman, to try to get the state to change this law as soon as possible. And we know the mayor of New York's bully pulpit is like no other. And to have the mayor of New York stand up and say, and go to Albany as one of their top legislative items, that the state has to change the age of adulthood in criminal proceedings, will, I believe, change that debate. 2, as mayor, we have to stop the budget dance around alternatives to incarceration and alternatives to detention and make those a fundamental part of our criminal justice system. So those individuals, young people and others who may have done something wrong, have another option before getting into court. And I would also ask the Corporation Counsel, the city's chief lawyer, what authority and latitude we might have on the city level, because sometimes you can get old waiting for the state.
It is clear that that's an area that the mayor of the city of New York has to get involved in, to stand up and realize children are children, and we have to do things differently there. But more than anything, we've got to keep our young people, it's a question of diversion, keeping them out of the criminal justice system. We tend to have a conversation again about what to do as opposed to let us keep them out of the criminal justice system. It is, again, I hate to say it, and I don't want to go back over similar ground. It's a question of we continue to look at young people, and what we're seeing these days. Stop and frisk. Turn your pockets out. Oops. Find something in your pockets, you're in the criminal justice system. The idea is to keep young people out of the criminal justice system. There are good diversion programs. You look at the Brooklyn District Attorney, he's working on diversion. There are others these days. Why the DA is working on diversion and the city of New York isn't, and law enforcement isn't? Let us keep young people out of the system as best we can. You look at community courts and a number of other different things. Those are ideas that work on a number of different levels. So right now, the city of New York and the mayor need to show leadership in that area to talk about the alternatives, the diversions, ways to keep young people out of the criminal justice system, as opposed to letting them fall in there and then talking about after the fact, well, what do we do now? Let's change the age. Let's keep them out to begin with.
I absolutely agree, and I think we all agree with the premise of the question, which is that kids should not be tried and punished as adults. And and unfortunately, it's not just 16-year-olds. Unfortunately, it's not just 13-year-olds. We see 7-year-olds being led out of the school in handcuffs and caught in the station restaurant. I mean, this is, when we talk about a police state, how much more are we going to do before New York City is truly just a police state? We've got to change the attitude, we've got to change the approach to policing, but Bill's right also, we have to provide our young people with the opportunities. Our opportunities that are in the after-school programs. How can the city continue to give hundreds of millions of dollars of subsidies to big companies who aren't doing anything for us and shutting after-school programs that cost them tens of millions of dollars? It is a misplaced fiscal priority. And yet, we see more and more resources being necessary for the jails. We have this continuous, and I know this is what you have in the paper, this schools to prison pipeline. This is a pipeline that we have to cut off immediately. Give young people the opportunity to succeed as opposed to watch them fail.
Well, the school to prison pipeline depends on failing schools. So let's begin at the beginning. Let's fix our schools by investing in early childhood education. Let's fix our schools by investing in after school. And again, there's a place where those resources exist. It's amongst the wealthiest New Yorkers. We need them to do their share to help us solve this fundamental problem. That's a beginning. But we also have to make the structural changes to stop treating our children as adults and putting them in harm's way, because what has happened more and more is that instead of an actual mental health system, we treat the prison system as our mental health system. That's what's happening. We don't do what Bill Thompson said about Cincinnati. I went to Cincinnati too. He's totally right. You could have mental health programs in our schools helping kids when the problems first develop. That would be humane, that would be proactive, that would be embracing. But instead, we wait until it's too late. And when people talk about a prison industrial complex, that's what it feels like. It feels like something that's so deeply embedded in our society we don't know how to gather. So I say begin at the beginning. We want to cherish our children, we invest in them. We invest in them visibly. We don't harass them on their streets when they're trying to follow the law. We invest in them, whether it's their physical health, their education, their mental health, and we don't send them to only a place where an adult criminal would be.
So we've dealt with health issues, we've dealt with housing, and our audience has been privy to seeing the covenant. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper as we look at education reform. I'm going to ask Jeremy Del Rio, he's the Executive Director of 2020 Vision for Schools, to proceed with his 2 questions. And I would like the answer to come, starting here with Bill, moving down to speaker.
Good evening. It's delightful to hear of all of your desire to end